Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's AITA stories take relationship drama to a whole new level. We're talking about some serious tension, from wedding planning showdowns with a future mother-in-law to the fallout of a husband seeking closure with his affair partner. But that's not even the worst of it. Imagine going through one of the most important moments of your life, and the person who's supposed to be your biggest support completely ruins it. Stay tuned because the final story will leave you absolutely speechless. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Let's dive in. When your future mother-in-law insists on a big wedding, would you tell her to put her money where her mouth is? Well, this bride-to-be did, and is now asking. AITA for telling my future mother-in-law that if she wants me to have a large wedding, she can pay for it. 29F here. I recently got engaged to my fiancé, Ryan, 30M. He was actually my high school sweetheart, but we broke up during college and have been back together for the past 7 years. Some context is that I am the youngest of 3 girls. My parents are both doctors, and they have done quite well for themselves. I think my future in-laws think they're much wealthier than they actually are. Most of their money has gone into mine and my sister's education, and so they still have to think about money and how much they're spending. My parents were kind enough to pay for my private college, but I had to cover law school on my own. I still have close to 100k to pay off. I make good money now and will be able to pay it off on my own, but also Ryan and I want to buy a house and have children, and so the debt is stressful. Also, a sizable percent of my salary for the past several years has gone towards paying off my debt. My dad pulled me aside when I got engaged and told me that he set aside 75k for each of his daughters for weddings. My oldest sister had a huge fancy wedding and spent most of the money on a ceremony. My other sister had a modest wedding and put the rest of the money towards a down payment on a house. My dad basically said the money is mine to do what I want with, whether I want to spend it all on a wedding or put all of it towards my student loans or something else. I spoke to Ryan about this and we agreed that I should put all of the money towards my student loans. Neither of us care about having a huge wedding, and we'd much rather get my debt paid off quickly so we could start saving for a house. My parents think this is a smart decision and are happy I'm using the money sensibly. They also know I've never been someone who cared about having a fancy wedding, and always thought I'd use the money for something else. When I told Ryan's parents that we're going to do a courthouse wedding, my future Mill Jan was upset. Jan said that my oldest sister had a beautiful wedding and asked why I didn't want the same. I explained the situation to her and that I'd rather put the money my parents set aside towards my loans and have a small celebration with our close family and friends. When I say small, I mean our parents, siblings, 1 or 2 close friends, and that's it. To be honest, if it was up to me, I'd just want it to be me and Ryan. But I think both of our families would be hurt by this, and so I want to include at least parents and siblings. Jan told Ryan and I that we were being selfish, since weddings are about uniting families and celebrating with loved ones, and we're putting our needs before that. She also said that we're both attorneys and aren't exactly struggling to pay the bills. She asked if we'd consider putting half of the money towards a ceremony and half of it towards my loans, and we said no. She then started saying that she had a ton of relatives who wanted to be included in the ceremony and will be disappointed that they don't get to see Ryan get married. Ryan told his mum she was being a hypocrite, since she literally eloped and didn't include her family in the ceremony. Jan started crying and saying it was a huge mistake to not have her family there, and she didn't want Ryan to make the same mistake. I stepped in and told Jan that if she wanted to pay for a wedding where all of her relatives would be included, then Ryan and I would be happy to take her up on it, but the money would have to come from her since she's the one who cares about us having a large wedding. This upset Jan, and she told me that the woman's family is supposed to pay for the wedding. She said that it's selfish that 2 doctors wouldn't help with my student loans and also pay for a ceremony. This set me off, since my parents have been extremely generous with me, including paying 100% of my undergrad tuition. I told Jan that my parents have worked hard for my sisters and I to have everything we needed growing up and to pay for our education, and I don't feel right asking them to contribute to a fancy ceremony on top of everything they've already given me. Ryan was furious and told his mum that he doesn't want her at our wedding if she's going to act like this. We ended up leaving, and Ryan hadn't spoken to his mum since. I talked to my oldest sister, and she thinks I'm being selfish too. She says I should put some of the money towards a wedding and some of it towards my loans, so our families could enjoy the special occasion. But I've never wanted a big wedding, and I'm stressed about my loans and just want them paid off. AITA. The mother-in-law is being unreasonable by asking her son and daughter-in-law to spend a significant amount of money on a fancy wedding they don't want, especially when they have their own financial goals in mind, like paying off student loans and alleviating financial strain. It's entirely fair for them to expect her to fund the lavish celebration she envisions, if that's what she truly wants. Additionally, it's quite rude for her to assume the bride's parents can easily cover the costs based on their careers. Just because they have certain jobs doesn't mean they're swimming in money. In reality, the bride's parents have gone above and beyond by raising $75,000 as a wedding gift for their daughter and new son-in-law. Since this is a gift, they have every right to decide how it's spent, and they've made a smart decision to prioritise paying off debt that could otherwise delay their dreams of starting a family and owning a home. It's important for all parties involved to communicate their needs and expectations clearly without making assumptions. Please share your thoughts in the comments section about this one. I am curious to see who you think is the a-hole in that story. Now, shifting gears from wedding planning to marital conflicts, the next story involves a couple who find themselves in heated arguments daily after the husband sought closure with his affair partner against his wife's wishes. Imagine this: your husband cheats on you. You muster the strength to forgive him and take him back. And while you're still working hard to piece your marriage back together, he decides to give the other woman some closure. How would you feel about that? Should you prioritise her feelings over your own, especially after she played a significant role in the hurt you've experienced? The question looms large. AITAH for fighting with my husband almost every day, for giving his affair partner closure against my wishes? This is the dilemma facing the woman in the next story, who finds herself in a constant battle with her husband over his decisions, which leaves her feeling even more isolated and hurt. Let's dive into her experience and see just how complicated this situation can become. My husband cheated on me with a friend of a co-worker. He didn't confess. I caught him when I found her lipstick in our car. I suspect she left it there on purpose, probably because she's a jealous and vindictive person herself. He had been cheating on me for 6 months while I was at home raising our toddler. The betrayal was so deep, especially when I realised I was sacrificing so much for his family, while he was busy fucking another wretched worm behind my back. 8 months ago, we started reconciliation and marriage counselling, but I've become filled with resentment due to the constant missteps on his part. Things have improved overall, but one thing I can't get past is that he gave closure to the affair partner, despite me being completely against it. Honestly, I didn't want them to get any kind of closure. I don't think either of them deserved even a shred of human decency after what they did to me. When I found out, he didn't communicate with her at all, and she was clueless. I told him that I despised the affair partner so much that I wanted her to suffer, to feel deeply confused, unwanted, and discarded, just disappear from her life without a word. I shared all of this with him. He knew exactly how I felt, but instead of ghosting her like I wanted, he decided after his own therapy sessions that he needed to give her closure. He sent her an email, making it clear there would be no contact and that I knew everything. When I confronted him, he said he needed to do this to close that chapter of his life. Calling her a chapter made my stomach turn. Why should she get such validation? It's disgusting that he gave their affair any semblance of dignity. I don't think they were worthy of having any humanness about this situation. I tell him almost every day how resentful I am of him for going behind my back and sending that email. But he never feels guilty for hurting me over the email, and keeps insisting that he needed to do this because he is a different person than I am and has different views over things. He said he needed to do this to take responsibility and for his own healing, and how his therapist didn't think he was doing anything wrong, and how I am allowed to disagree with him, but I need to respect him as long as he has made the right choice. I feel so frustrated. I don't think based on his cheating, he doesn't deserve to make this choice on his own. Am I being too fussy here? This is a tricky situation. The reality is that her husband initiated a relationship with someone else, and the mature thing to do is to end that relationship definitively. However, it's important to remember that the affair partner was aware she was involved with a married man. That knowledge adds another layer of complexity. It's understandable for the wife to feel that there should be nothing to close, since the affair should never have happened in the first place. While it might seem easier for the husband to ghost his affair partner, emotions are rarely that simple. If feelings were involved, he might have felt compelled to officially end things to clearly communicate where he stands. This act of closure sets a boundary with the affair partner rather than leaving the situation open-ended, which can lead to more confusion and pain for everyone involved. The fact that he chose to communicate this through an email, which he then shared with his wife, does suggest an attempt to be transparent, but it's also a decision that was bound to stir up more hurt. It's completely expected for the OP to feel upset and react strongly. She is processing her pain and betrayal. Trust is incredibly difficult to rebuild after such a violation, and it may take a long time for her to come to terms with all that's happened, and it's possible she might never fully move on from it. Speaking of relationships and the challenges they bring, our final story delves into a deeply emotional conflict when a wife tells her husband he ruined the birth of their child. Let's see how this unfolds. Childbirth should be one of the most special moments in life, but this mum feels her husband ruined it completely and wants to know AITA for telling my husband that he absolutely ruined the birth of our child. Our daughter is now 8 weeks old, so obviously this whole argument has gone on for a very, very long time. We both have been holding grudges, and neither of us think that we are wrong. So, when I got pregnant with my daughter, my husband started immediately telling me that I should have a home birth. I really do not know why he was so adamant on it, but he was. At first, I brushed him off and told him I would think about it because I was only 6 weeks pregnant, and the birth seemed so far off. Of course, it came quickly, and my husband would literally speak over me at doctor's appointments, where my doctor would ask if I had a birth plan. This caused a few arguments between us in those 39 weeks of pregnancy, but I never really changed my mind. Eventually, my husband's mother sat down and talked to me, and she told me all of the reasons why they did not want me to go to a hospital for the birth. I expressed my concerns about the safety of the baby and myself, but just like my husband, she brushed me off. I ended up telling my husband that I would take myself to the hospital when it was time, and that I did not want a home birth. He acted as if he didn't hear me. We met with a doula who was also very pushy. I felt overwhelmed and not supported at all. I was 36 weeks at that point, so when I went to labour, I was 39 weeks, and I begged, absolutely begged my husband to take me to the hospital where my doctor is. He wouldn't. He spoke to me condescendingly and called the doula instead. I was in labour for about 3 days, active labour for around the last 22 hours. I cried the whole time. I just felt something was wrong. I was scared, and oftentimes they left me alone. The doula told me that if active pushing and labour reached 24 hours, I had to go into the hospital. I remember thinking that I could not decide which was worse, staying in labour for another 2 hours, or having my baby right there. When she was finally out, I don't even remember wanting to hold her. I just remember crying out of relief. Obviously, I am okay now, but I did not have a good experience. On my first appointment after birth with my doctor, she was very shocked I had the baby. She was concerned. I was so upset. I told my husband that he absolutely ruined it for me. I truly never want to go through that again. I hear mothers say that they forget all the pain the second they have the baby, but I didn't. I love my daughter so much, but it was horrible, and it was entirely his fault. So, I told him that several times. He rolls his eyes every time and tells me how mothers are strong, and how I am not trying to be strong. I told him that if we ever have another baby, which he wants, that I will never do a home birth ever again. His response is, "We'll see." I cannot possibly be the a-hole here, can I? Everyone around me is acting like this is so normal, but it's not. Is it? This story is truly appalling, and the experience the OP had was nothing short of horrific. It's ironic that a man who will never experience pregnancy or childbirth would put himself in a position to dictate how a woman should give birth. He clearly does not understand the immense stress and trauma that a woman endures during this process. I would go as far as to say that this woman's husband abused her by refusing to take her to the hospital when she was in labour. It's hard enough for women to navigate childbirth, and to have a partner insisting that she do it their way is beyond concerning. Holding her hostage at home for 3 days while she was in excruciating pain is utterly unacceptable. This scenario brings to mind those distressing stories of men insisting that their wives forgo epidurals when they've clearly requested one. As the OP articulated, her husband truly ruined what should have been a life-changing and beautiful experience. And let's not overlook the mother-in-law and doula's role in this. They should be ashamed of themselves, especially the doula, for allowing another woman to endure such an ordeal. If the OP was begging to go to the hospital, she should have been taken there immediately. It was a violation of her rights and, more alarmingly, it put both her and her baby's lives at risk. If I were in the OP's position, I would seriously consider divorcing my husband. The fact that he believes he did nothing wrong is utterly ridiculous, and his intention to force her to have the next child at home raises serious red flags. While home births can be safe under the right conditions, it's crucial that no one is coerced into a situation they are uncomfortable with. This woman's rights were violated, and it's disheartening that people in her life are normalising such a traumatic experience. Birth is such a personal and emotional journey. Do you think the husband was really at fault here? Let me know your thoughts on this story and all the others in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more content. Your engagement helps us continue exploring these vital conversations. See you all in the next one.